Eddie Thompson thought he was the town punchline until his wife's betrayal pushed him into the fight of his life. Welcome to Story Time with Papa Al. Now let's see where Eddie takes us.
The hardware store still smelled like dust, motor oil, and slow death. I leaned against the counter, twirling a screwdriver like it was a baton, watching the wall clock struggle to reach noon. In Willow Creek, Saturdays were for yard work, beer runs, and pretending your life hadn't turned into a rerun. Living the dream, I muttered to myself, clapping slow, sarcastic applause. No customers, no calls, no life. I adjusted my faded Thompson's hardware cap and tried not to think about Veronica. Again. She had left the house that morning in a tight red dress, the kind that said, "I'm about to make decisions I can't take back," and given me a smile so fake it practically peeled at the edges. "You're not enough for me anymore, Eddie," she'd said last night, her voice casual like she was discussing the weather. "I deserve more." More what? I wanted to ask. More mortgages? More beers with guys named Todd who brag about their bass boats? Instead, I made a joke. Because that's what Eddie Thompson does. "Well," I had said, raising my beer bottle in a mock toast, "if it's mediocrity you're after, babe, I'm a whole damn buffet." She hadn't laughed. She didn't even look at me. Around 2 p.m., Maggie O'Dell wandered in. Maggie was my neighbor across the street. Mid-60s, wiry as a paperclip, always wearing a tie-dye shirt and cargo shorts. She looked like someone who'd accidentally survived Woodstock. She was also the kind of person who believed JFK was alive and running a donut shop in Montana. "You're slumping, Ed," she said, plopping a battered army rucksack on the counter. "Body language like that? Might as well put a kick me sign on your soul." "Thanks, Mags. Real uplifting," I said. "You selling something today? Homemade explosives? Vials of alien blood?" "Ha, no, genius," she grinned. "Dropping off a project. The handle on my garden fork snapped. Figure you got time to fix it, what with all the customers busting down the door." I gave her a lazy, two-fingered salute. "At your service, ma'am." As I examined her battered fork, Maggie leaned closer, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Word is Veronica's spending a lot of time at the mayor's office." I stiffened. "Maybe she's running for town council," I said, forcing a smile. "Maybe she's the one running the shadow government," Maggie countered, dead serious. I chuckled. If she's plotting a coup, God help 'em. They'll all be required to moisturize and watch Real Housewives marathons. But a pit had opened in my stomach. Because I knew better. I knew Veronica wasn't running for office. She was running away from me. By sunset, I was sitting on the porch with a warm beer and a view of Willow Creek's one traffic light, blinking red like it had given up trying. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but some desperate part of me hoped it was Veronica, calling to apologize, saying it was all a misunderstanding. No such luck. A gravelly voice rumbled through the line. "You Eddie Thompson?" "That depends. If you're a bill collector, I died tragically yesterday." Silence. Then a grunt. "Name's Cal Ramsey. Heard you might need some help." "Help?" I asked, puzzled. "With what?" "My crippling self-esteem issues?" "Your wife," he said bluntly. "And the mayor." I sat up straighter. My heart started thudding against my ribs. "Who told you?" "Small town," Cal said. "Word gets around." The line went quiet. I could almost hear him lighting a cigarette. "Meet me at the abandoned train station," he said. Midnight. Before I could sputter something about how shady that sounded, he hung up. For a long minute, the beer forgotten in my hand. Maybe I should just let it go. Pack up, move to Florida, open a bait shop. Start a new life where the worst betrayal I'd face was someone stealing my best nightcrawler. But then again, maybe, just maybe, Eddie Thompson was tired of being the town joke. Maybe it was time to do something stupid. Grinning grimly, I tipped back my beer and muttered to the empty street, "Guess I'm gonna be late for my midlife crisis." The abandoned train station smelled like wet concrete and dead leaves. I stood under the flickering street lamp, hands jammed deep into the pockets of my hoodie, wondering for the 15th time if this was how people ended up starring in unsolved murder documentaries. A beat-up Crown Vic rolled into the lot, tires crunching over the gravel. The headlights cut out, and a stocky man in a frayed leather jacket stepped out, moving with the slow, careful grace of someone who'd seen too many bad surprises. "Thompson," he called. "Depends," I said, raising a hand. "If you're selling extended warranties, I'm out of here." A ghost of a smile twitched across his face. "Cal Ramsey," he said, offering a hand. His grip was firm, his knuckles scarred. The kind of hand you didn't want punching you. He sized me up in one look. Disappointment flickered across his face so fast I almost missed it. "You don't look like much," he said bluntly. "Thanks," I said. "My therapist says the same thing." Cal snorted. "At least you're honest." We walked toward the station's crumbling entrance. Cal lit a cigarette with a battered Zippo, the flame briefly illuminating a face lined with old grudges. "You know why I'm here?" he asked. "Something about my wife and the mayor," I said. "Yeah, she's been seen entering the mayor's private office after hours, multiple times." He paused to blow a smoke ring into the night. "And not for political discussions unless they're very hands-on." I winced. "I figured," I muttered. "Doesn't take a rocket scientist." Cal nodded grimly. "But it gets worse." He pulled a folder from his jacket, greasy and dog-eared, handed it to me. Inside were grainy photos. Veronica laughing too hard at something Mayor Crane said. Veronica disappearing into Crane's office, lipstick slightly smeared. Veronica clutching his arm like a life raft. There were receipts, too. City funds rerouted, invoices that didn't add up, checks signed off by Crane for consulting services that smelled fishier than the Willow Creek bait shop in July. "See?" Cal said, jabbing a finger at the papers. "Crane's been skimming city funds through fake projects, slush accounts, kickbacks, and your wife? She's getting a taste." My head swam. Veronica. Involved in this? I had thought she was shallow, selfish, maybe cruel, but corrupt. "You sure?" I asked, hating how weak my voice sounded. "Kid, I don't take cases I don't believe in," Cal said. His voice hardened. "I tried to take Crane down once. They tossed me out of the department like yesterday's trash. Blackballed me, ruined me." He took a long drag of his cigarette. "I can't undo what they did, but I can make damn sure they don't keep getting away with it." I should have been paying attention. I should have been soaking it all in, planning my next move like some hardened Avenger. Instead, I was distracted, because there in the shadow of the ticket booth was a suspiciously familiar outline. A skinny figure hunched behind a busted trash can, wearing a tie-dye shirt that glowed faintly under the street lamp. Maggie O'Dell, spying on me like a stoner raccoon. I rubbed my face. Christ on a lawnmower? Cal followed my gaze and squinted. "Friend of yours?" "Neighbor," I sighed. "Runs on a strict diet of Tabasco, weed gummies, and government conspiracy blogs." Maggie, realizing she'd been made, scuttled over like a guilty possum. "Before you yell," she said breathlessly, "I was just making sure you weren't getting kidnapped and sold to an organ farm." "Well, thanks, Mags," I said. Real confidence booster. Cal looked amused. "You always bring backup?" "Only when I'm making terrible life choices," I said. Maggie ignored us and launched into her trademark babble. "Listen, Mayor Crane? He's dirty, like real dirty. Not just a fair dirty. I've seen delivery trucks pulling up to his house at 2 a.m., unloading crates. Big crates. You know what's in them?" "Please don't say lizard eggs," I groaned. "Documents," she insisted. "Records, stuff they don't want found. My brother, well, my ex-brother, since the mind control incident, he said they're tied to a shell company registered in Belize. Belize, Eddie. Cal arched an eyebrow. And you believe her? He asked dryly. I threw up my hands. I barely believe me half the time. Maggie's eyes gleamed with excitement. You mock me now, but the truth's like mold, Eddie. It spreads, it rots. And eventually it stinks so bad, you can't ignore it. For a crazy person, she had a poetic streak. Cal stubbed out his cigarette on the cracked pavement. Crazy or not, he said. Some of that tracks. I blinked. You're kidding. Nope. Belize shell companies are a real thing. Used for money laundering. Wouldn't surprise me. Maggie beamed like she'd just won a Nobel Prize in gossip. Told you, she chirped. I'm basically Willow Creek's deep throat. More like shallow end of the pool, I muttered. We ended up huddled around Cal's trunk, flipping through grainy photos and financial ledgers, with Maggie chiming in every 2 minutes about secret societies and alien mind rays. But somewhere in that mess, a plan began to take shape. A way to hit Crane and Veronica where it hurt. Expose them. Humiliate them. Ruin them. And maybe, just maybe, climb out of the hole I'd spent my whole life digging with my own 2 idiot hands. Cal snapped the trunk shut. You in? He asked, looking between me and Maggie. I hesitated. I wasn't a hero. Hell, most days I barely qualified as a functioning adult. But when I thought about Veronica's smirk, the way she'd looked at me like a gum stain on her designer heels, I nodded. I'm in, I said. Good, Cal grunted, because once we start, there's no going back. Maggie cackled and slapped me on the back. Don't worry, Eddie. I've already packed us tinfoil hats and beef jerky. We're ready for war. God help me. The next morning, my kitchen looked like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Cal had spread out maps, photographs, financial records, and surveillance notes all over the table. Maggie had added her own evidence, which included a blurry photo of a raccoon she swore was Mayor Crane's spy animal, a hand-drawn diagram connecting the mayor to the Illuminati, the Knights Templar, and somehow Miley Cyrus. A tattered notebook labeled Secrets They Don't Want You to Know, Volume 7. I was trying to follow along, but honestly, my brain tapped out somewhere between embezzlement and hidden alien bunkers. So let me get this straight, I said, scratching my head. We're going to, what? Break into the mayor's office, steal incriminating documents, and expose him? Cal gave me a look. No, genius. We're going to catch them in the act. Them, your wife, and the mayor. Together. And by act, you mean? He gave a meaningful look at the stack of miniature surveillance cameras he'd brought. Oh, I said weakly. Lovely. Nothing like revenge with bonus PTSD. Maggie clapped her hands like a deranged cheerleader. I can plant bugs, she said eagerly. I was in 4-H. I'm great at stealth. Cal raised an eyebrow. You sure you're not just great at being crazy? Maggie grinned. Why can't it be both? The plan, such as it was. Step 1. Maggie would create a diversion at City Hall. Step 2. While the chaos unfolded, Cal and I would slip inside the mayor's office and plant surveillance equipment. Step 3. We'd monitor everything, record any criminal confessions, or, failing that, catch Veronica and Crane mid-sleaze fest. Simple. Elegant, totally destined to go sideways. Day of the mission. We parked 2 blocks from City Hall in Cal's ancient Crown Vic, eating gas station sandwiches that tasted like chemical warfare. I tugged at my disguise, a fake mustache Maggie had insisted on taping to my upper lip. I look like a rejected Mario brother, I muttered, examining myself in the cracked side mirror. You look fine, Maggie lied. Very international, like a French hitman. A French hitman who moonlights as a substitute gym teacher, Cal added, lighting a cigarette. Quit whining. Maggie adjusted her floppy sun hat and enormous sunglasses. I'm ready to cause a scene, she said proudly. Just be distracting, Cal warned. Don't get arrested. Maggie winked. No promises. At precisely 1:30 p.m., Maggie burst into City Hall wielding a hand-painted sign that said, "Free the Willow Creek pigeons." She marched up and down the lobby, shouting about avian oppression and bird rights, while confused clerks and the single-board security guard tried to corral her. It was absurd. It was brilliant. "Time to move," Cal growled. We slipped in through a side entrance, moving fast down the empty corridors. I tried to act casual, which naturally made me look like I was definitely up to something. Cal found the mayor's private office, picked the lock with a paperclip like some grizzled MacGyver, and waved me inside. The office was exactly what you'd expect. Too much mahogany, too many flags, and a framed photo of Crane shaking hands with someone who looked suspiciously like a mobster wearing a judge's robe. We moved quickly, placing tiny cameras behind the bookshelves, under the desk, and in the air vent. I was still securing a wire behind a fake plant when Cal grunted. "Look at this." He handed me a thick manila envelope hidden inside a drawer. Inside were blueprints, not just of City Hall, but other public properties around Willow Creek. Highlighted areas showed renovation contracts worth millions. "Maggie might be nuts," Cal muttered, but she wasn't wrong about secret deals. I whistled low. Well, great. Now I have to apologize to her. That's going to be worse than jail. We finished just as Maggie's shrieks of "bird genocide" grew louder outside. "Let's move," Cal said. We ducked out the way we came, leaving behind the tiniest army of witnesses. Back at my house, the three of us crammed onto my sagging couch, eating cold pizza and watching the live feed from the planted cameras. Hours passed, nothing, more nothing, but now with yawning. "Maybe they're too busy oppressing pigeons," I muttered. Around a mouthful of crust, but just as I was about to give up and call it a night, the mayor's office door swung open. There they were, Veronica in another too-tight dress, Crane all smug and sweaty. Their conversation wasn't subtle. Once we pushed through the new zoning, Crane was saying, pawing at her waist, "We'll be set for life. Half the new land rights are already promised under the table." Veronica giggled. "Baby, you're brilliant." I gagged. Maggie took furious notes like she was planning to submit it all to the FBI. Cal leaned in, grim-faced. "Got him." And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something stir in my gut. Hope? Rage? Maybe just indigestion from the gas station sandwiches. Didn't matter. The point was, I wasn't the punchline anymore. I was Eddie Thompson, and I was about to become Willow Creek's most unexpected nightmare. Willow Creek's Founders Day Festival was the biggest event of the year, a celebration of pioneer spirit, questionable barbecue, and enough small-town gossip to power a nuclear reactor. Mayor Crane was giving the keynote speech. Veronica would be by his side, fake smiling her way into public approval, and we were going to crash it. Morning of the festival. I paced my kitchen, stomach nodding itself into sailor-grade macrame. Maybe this is stupid, I muttered. Maybe I should just let it go. Start fresh, grow a beard, move to Montana, herd llamas. Cal sipped his black coffee with the calm of a man who had seen 1,000 idiots make 1,000 bad decisions. "You sure you're up for this, kid?" he asked. I thought about Veronica's cold smile, about Crane's sweaty hand on her waist. I straightened my spine. "Born ready," I lied. Maggie burst in, carrying a giant duffel bag and wearing a Bird Lives Matter t-shirt. "I brought reinforcements," she chirped. Cal peered into the bag and swore under his breath. Inside were 3 walkie-talkies, 24 smoke bombs, a bullhorn, a remote-controlled pigeon. Seriously, it flapped and everything. I covered my face with my hands. Mags were exposing corruption, not storming Normandy. "You say potato," she said cheerfully. "I say plausible deniability." The plan, festival version. Cal would sneak into the sound booth before the mayor's speech. I would stay close to Veronica and Crane, ready to react. Maggie would do Maggie things, whatever chaos she could cook up to create a distraction if needed. Once Crane started speaking, Cal would hijack the PA system and broadcast our surveillance footage for the entire town to see. Simple, elegant, totally doomed. At the festival, the town square was packed. Kids licked melting ice cream cones. Old men argued about tractors, and in the center of it all, Crane stood on a makeshift stage, beaming like a man who thought he was untouchable. Veronica was perched beside him, wearing sunglasses and the kind of smug smile that could curdle milk. Cal disappeared into the sound booth like a ghost. I positioned myself near the VIP tent, nerves jangling like loose car parts. Maggie had stationed herself near the corndog stand, wearing a fake mustache even worse than mine, and handing out pamphlets titled The Pigeon Manifesto. "Showtime," Cal said into the walkie-talkie. I tapped my earpiece. "Ready?" Maggie's voice crackled through, weirdly loud. "I'm releasing the pigeons." "What pigeons?" I hissed. But it was too late. From somewhere near the town hall steps, Maggie unleashed a crate of live pigeons she'd somehow acquired. They exploded into the crowd like feathery fireworks. Children screamed, grown men ducked for cover. And in the middle of it all, the mayor blinked rapidly, mid-speech, as a pigeon dive-bombed his podium. "Is this part of it?" Cal muttered. "Nope," I said brightly. "Pure Maggie." Crane tried to recover. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, wiping bird poop from his sleeve. "As I was saying, Willow Creek is on the verge of a new era." That's when the PA system screeched to life. Instead of Crane's polished nonsense, the entire square heard, "Once we push through the new zoning, we'll be set for life. Half the land rights are already promised under the table." The surveillance audio blasted from every speaker in town. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones whipped out like pistols. Crane's face drained of color. Veronica looked around wildly, like she might actually start blaming me for gravity. "Kill the feed!" Crane bellowed at his aides. Too late. The damage was done. I stepped forward, microphone in hand, because apparently I had decided today was the day I fully leaned into bad decisions. "Hey folks," I said, voice crackling over the speakers. "Eddie Thompson here. Just wanted to personally thank our mayor and his special consultant for all their hard work." The crowd laughed, not the polite kind, the nasty kind, the "we smell blood" kind. Crane shoved Veronica aside, literally shoved her, trying to flee the stage. The crowd surged after him like a tidal wave of angry PTA parents. Veronica stumbled after him, screaming something about lawyers and wrongful termination and how she was an innocent victim. I watched them run, feeling something warm and unfamiliar blossom in my chest. Victory, maybe, or pure stupid joy, or possibly just sunstroke. It was like 90 degrees. The fallout was swift and glorious. State investigators were in town by morning. Crane was facing a dozen charges, Veronica was drowning in public humiliation, and Maggie got interviewed by 2 different news channels. She gave both interviews while wearing a tinfoil hat. "Better safe than mind-controlled," she said proudly. Cal shook my hand in front of the ruined stage. "Not bad for a guy who looks like he can't operate a microwave." "Thanks, old man," I said, smiling. "Means a lot." He lit a cigarette and looked at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're all right, Eddie. Messy, but all right." I walked home that afternoon with a sunburn, a limp from a rogue pigeon attack, and a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Maybe I wasn't the town's best. Maybe I wasn't even second best. But damn it, I was nobody's joke anymore. And in Willow Creek, that was worth more than gold. The next few weeks in Willow Creek were like living inside a soap opera written by raccoons. Mayor Crane? Gone. Resigned in disgrace. Last seen heading toward the state border in a rental car that still had a "just married" sign on it. Only this time, the cans tied to the bumper were empty evidence bags. Veronica. Public enemy number 1. Her real estate license got revoked, her social calendar turned into a wasteland, and even the local beauty salon banned her for violations against community spirit and bangs. It was everything I'd wanted, and everything I thought I needed. So why did I feel so weird? One afternoon, I sat on my porch with Cal and Maggie, drinking cold beers and enjoying the unholy racket of Maggie's wind chimes, which sounded like angry robots fighting in a tin can. Now that you're Willow Creek's favorite avenging angel, Cal said, kicking back in a lawn chair, what's next? You gonna run for mayor yourself? I barked a laugh, nearly choking on my beer. Yeah, sure, I said, wiping my mouth. Mayor mediocrity. First executive order, mandatory nap times. Maggie leaned forward, eyes gleaming. I have a better idea, she said. We open a detective agency. Cal looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Please tell me you're kidding. Maggie ignored him, pulling out a notepad labeled Future Business Ventures. She flipped to a page titled EMCA. Eddie, Maggie, Cal Associates, Private Investigators. I stared at it. Cartoon doodles of pigeons in trench coats lined the margins. Mags, I said gently, you're wonderful, but you're also clinically insane. Thanks, she beamed. I grinned and leaned back in my chair. Detective Thompson, huh? I mused aloud. Has a nice ring to it, like I solve mysteries and occasionally fix toilets. You could do worse, Cal said, cracking a rare smile. Most people do. As the sun dipped behind the rooftops of Willow Creek, painting everything in shades of gold and rust, I realized something. I didn't need revenge to feel like somebody. I just needed to remember I was already enough. Pigeon attacks, fake mustaches, bad decisions and all. Maggie poked my arm. Hey, Eddie. Yeah. If we do start a business, she said, eyes twinkling, can we have a slogan? I laughed. Sure, Mags. What's the slogan? She threw her arms wide and shouted to the heavens. Trust us, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. And weirdly, that sounded just about right. Epilogue. Grand opening. 3 months later. The sign on Main Street was crooked. The office was a former yogurt shop that still smelled faintly of vanilla and bad decisions. But it was ours. Thompson and Associates Private Investigators. Underneath, in smaller print, trust us, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. I set the final box down with a grunt, wiping my forehead. Maggie was already arranging a line of bobblehead pigeons across the front desk. Professional ambiance, she said proudly. Cal sat slumped in a chair, flipping through a newspaper like a man who deeply regretted every life choice that led him here. You realize we're probably going to get sued by the first client we screw up, he grumbled. Optimism, Cal, I said, clapping him on the shoulder. It's all about branding. The door creaked open and an elderly woman poked her head in. You folks investigate cheatin' husbands? She asked hopefully. I shot Maggie a look. She grinned and slapped a badge-shaped sticker onto my chest. Investigator in training. I straightened my spine. Yes, ma'am, I said, voice solemn. We specialize in cheaters, scoundrels, and pigeon-related espionage. Cal groaned into his hands. The woman smiled wide. I knew you kids were the real deal. And just like that, we had our first client.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Papa Owl. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe.